ISIL.
International Commission on English in the Liturgy, established in 1963.
Ignorantia.
Ignorance, a lack of due knowledge, the absence of data in the process of knowing, to the point that no judgment can be reached.
Illicitum.
Illicit, an unlawful or illegal action by someone.
Impedimentum.
Impediment, a condition or a fact considered by the law as an obstacle to certain actions, such as an impediment to a marriage.
Impediens.
Impeding, makes an action illegal.
Imperata.
Ordered, prayers added by the bishop to the orations at Mass.
Imprimatur.
It may be printed, permission from competent ecclesiastical authority for publication.
Incapacitas psychica.
Psychological incapacity.
Incardinatio.
Incardination, the affiliation of a cleric to a diocese for ministry in that diocese.
Incola.
Inhabitant, a resident who possesses a domicile.
Indevolutivo.
Indevolutively, the effects of the decree are not suspended or transferred during recourse.
Individuale decretum.
Individual decree, an administrative act issued by a competent executive authority in which a decision is given or a provision is made in a particular case in accord with the norms of law.
Indulgentia.
Indulgence, a remission before God of the temporal punishment for sin, the guilt of which is already forgiven, which remission a properly disposed member of the Christian faithful obtains under certain and definite conditions.
Indultum.
Indult, a concession, such as a dispensation, permission, faculty or privilege, granted by a lawful superior to do something not permitted by the common law of the Church.
Indultum discedendi.
Indult of departure, for a member of a religious institute, the cessation of the rights and obligations that arose from the contract of profession in that institute. Such a person is either a lay person or a cleric, depending upon whether sacred orders were received.
Indultum secularizationis.
Indult of secularization, the name formerly used for the definitive departure of a member from a religious institute.
In facto esse.
Being, to be in actuality, a scholastic expression indicating existence, opposite of. In fieri esse.
Infans.
Infant, in the canonical sense a minor who has not completed the 7th year.
In favorem fidei, favore fidei.
In favor of the faith.
In fieri esse.
To be in becoming, a scholastic expression designating the passage from potency to act.
In forma commissoria.
In commissarial form, the form by which a rescript is granted to a petitioner through an intermediary or executor.
In forma commissoria necessaria.
In necessary commissarial form, indicates that the executor of a rescript has no choice but to execute the rescript according to the terms contained in it.
In forma commissoria voluntaria.
Involuntary commissarial form, indicates that the execution of a rescript is left to the discretionary power of the executor.
In forma graziosa.
In favored form, the form by which a rescript is granted directly to the petitioner.
In forma pauperum.
In the form of poverty, granted without the required payment of a stipend or
Taxa. In globo.
in a ball or lump, indicates something done together or as a group rather than individually.
Inhabilitantes leges.
Inhabilitating laws, invalidating laws that touch the person so that, regardless of territory, those who act contrary to the laws do so invalidly.
In oxilo vinces.
In this sign you will conquer, said to have been seen in the sky by the Emperor Constantine before his victory over Maxentius at the Mulvian Bridge in 312.
In iure.
In law.
In necessariis unitas in dubiis libertas in omnibus caritas.
In essentials unity, in doubtful matters freedom, in all things charity.
In paradisum.
Into paradise, the first words of a hymn sung at the conclusion of a funeral service as the body is being led from the church.
In partibus infidelium.
In the lands of unbelievers, in mission territories.
In pectore.
In the heart, denoting that the Pope has named someone to an office or honor but has not yet made the name public, the name is known only to the Holy Father.
In re.
In fact.
In se.
In itself.
In solidum.
Jointly, as a body, two or more persons delegated to act equally, but the delegation can be fulfilled by any one of them, in such a way however, that if one fails or refuses or is unable to act, the others continue to be obligated.
Instancia prima seconda tertia.
In the first, second, third instance, these are three levels of adjudicating procedure according to church law. The first instance trial is conducted at the diocesan level, the second instance at a court of appeal, and the third instance in marriage cases at the Roman Rota.
Instructio.
Instruction calls attention to the specific laws that it is intended to clarify and explain. Textual conflicts between the law and any instructions should be resolved in favor of the law, and if the two are irreconcilable, the instruction loses its force.
Instructor.
Instructor, a person, often a judge, designated to gather proofs and present them to a judge in an ecclesiastical trial.
Instrumentum laboris.
Instrument of work, a working paper or outline in preparation for a discussion on a specific topic.
In tempore non suspecto.
At a time not suspected.
Interdictum.
Interdict, a penalty applied to persons by which a member of the church is forbidden to take part in certain liturgical services and to administer or to receive certain sacraments. A local interdict is a penalty forbidding certain liturgical services or the celebration or reception of certain sacraments in certain places.
Intermirifica.
Among wonderful things, a decree of Vatican II on the instruments of social communication, 1963.
Interpretatio.
Interpretation, the meaning of law, taking into account the elasticity of words in text and context. Broad interpretation represents the maximum that a term can honestly carry. Strict interpretation represents the minimum that a term must honestly include.
In tutto collocare.
To arrange in a safe place.
Invalidans lex.
Invalidating law, one that pertains directly to the act itself, no matter who performs the action, so that the law denies any juridic effect to the action.
Incapacitans lex.
Is incapacitating law, one that pertains to the person who performs the action and denies him, her the capacity to act in a way that produces juridic effect.
Investitura.
Investiture, the act of the superior granting the office to a person previously designated either by presentation or nomination.
In vigilando efficacius.
In being on guard more effectively.
Irregularitas.
Irregularity, an impediment to the reception or the exercise of sacred orders.
Irritans lex.
Nullifying law, a type of invalidating law that touches the action within a territory so that anybody who acts contrary to the law in that territory does so invalidly.
Iud expresses.
Presiding judge, a judge is a person with a canonical degree who is appointed by the diocesan bishop to decide cases brought before an ecclesiastical court.
Judicialis confessio.
Judicial confession, a written or oral assertion against oneself made by a party regarding the matter under trial and made before a competent judge, whether spontaneously or upon interrogation by the judge.
Judicialis vicarius.
Judicial vicar, also called an official, a priest, holding an advanced degree in canon law, whom the bishop is required to appoint in each diocese and who has the ordinary power to judge ecclesiastical cases submitted to the diocese.
Juramentum, ius jurandum.
Oath, the invocation of the divine name in witness of the truth that one is stating.
Jure divino.
By divine law, by a law that does not admit of dispensation or change.
Jurisdictio.
Jurisdiction, the power, right, or authority to govern the faithful, ordinary, jurisdiction that the law attaches to an office, delegated, jurisdiction that is granted to a person by another person.
Jurisprudentia.
Jurisprudence, the procedure of judges and tribunals, that is, the form or mode of proceeding in tribunals for dealing with various cases and other matters. It also is understood to describe canonical jurisprudence, that is, the science and art of utilizing, interpreting, and supplying the codified law by rescript and by judicial opinion.
Jus ad rem.
Right to the thing, the right to obtain something.
Jus canonicum.
Canon law, the norms governing the practice of Catholics throughout the Church, also called universal church law.
Jus commune.
Common law, all laws and legitimate customs of the universal church as well as of the Eastern churches.
Jus defensionis.
Right of defense, the right to defend oneself before court of law.
Jus in corpus, jus corpore.
Right toward or in the body, in old marriage law it meant the right over the body for acts of sexual intercourse.
Jus in re.
A right itself.
Jus particulare.
Particular law, or laws, legitimate customs, statutes, and other norms of law not common to the universal church nor to all the Eastern churches.
Justa de causa.
Concerning a just cause, for just cause.
Justitia.
Justice, a cardinal virtue whereby one gives to others that which is due to them as a matter of right.
Ius vigens.
Living law, that law which is actually in effect and operating in the church at that time.
Laborem exercens.
Performing work, an encyclical of John Paul II on human work, 1981.
Lacuna legis.
Gap of the law, a term in canon law that acknowledges that there is a gap, hiatus, or place where something is missing in a law so that an interpreter of the law must decide a case by other principles.
Laicales, laici.
Laity, a name for the Christian faithful who are distinguished from the
Clerici.
clerics, that is, sacred ministers.
Laicisatio.
Laicization, the reduction of an ecclesiastical person or thing to a lay status.
Late sententiae.
A sentence already passed, a penalty inflicted by the law itself immediately upon commission of the offense, automatic imposition of the penalty.
Legalis personalitas.
Legal personality, the ability to demonstrate self-determination and the right to possess.
Legatus a latere.
Legate from the side, a confidential representative of the Pope sent on a mission of particular importance and possessing special powers.
Lex.
Law, an ordinance of reason that is promulgated by the lawgiver for the sake of the common good. Ecclesiastical law is a norm regulating the activity of Christians, instituted permanently by legitimate ecclesiastical authority, for the common good of the ecclesial society. Universal laws are those which have been enacted by those who have legislative power for the entire church and are intended primarily for the common good of the universal community. Particular laws are those enacted by those who have legislative power over a particular territory and intend the common good of that particular group.
Lex orandi, lex credendi.
The law of praying.
Is.
The law of believing, prayers express beliefs.
Libellus.
Petition, the formal document that introduces a case into court, also known as
Libellus litis introductorius.
or bill of complaint.
Libri tabulae, acta.
Books, tablets, acts, records, parish books in which the events of a person's baptism, confirmation, marriage, ordination, and death are recorded.
Liber usualis.
The ordinary book, a book containing the Gregorian chant musical notation and text for the divine office and liturgy.
Licita actio.
Licit action, a lawful action, or an action performed according to the requirement of the law.
Ligamen.
Tie, bond, an impediment based on a prior bond of marriage.
Code of Canon Law 1085.
Lineamenta.
Outline, a term used by the Holy See for a preliminary document outlining topics to be treated at a meeting.
Lites finite.
Allegations ended, controversy terminated.
Litere dimissoriales.
Demissorial letters, written permission and authorization granted by an ecclesiastical superior to his own subject to receive holy orders outside that superior's jurisdiction.
Litere testimoniales.
Testimonial letters, written affidavits concerning persons or situations.
Liturgia.
Liturgy, the exercise of the priestly office of Jesus Christ by which the Church fulfills the office of sanctifying through sensible signs in the public worship of God.
Lumen Gentium.
Light of the Nations, the Constitution of Vatican II on the Church, 1964.
Magisterium.
Magisterium, the teaching authority or the teaching body of the Church.
Magnificat.
It magnifies or praises, the opening words of the Song of Mary.
Luke 1, 46-55.
Used at Vespers.
Maiora videbis.
You will see greater things.
Manea tubi est.
Let it remain where it is.
Mater et magistra.
Mother and Teacher, an encyclical of John the 23rd on Christianity and Social Progress, 1961.
Materia.
Matter, the undetermined part of a sacrament that needs to be clarified by words.
Materia prima.
Prime matter, pure potency as a basic constitutive element of material beings, which is actuated by a substantial form.
Matrimonia mixta.
Mixed marriages, an apostolic letter of Paul VI regarding mixed marriages, 1970.
Matrimonium in facto esse.
Marriage existing in actuality, a true and unique conjugal union.
Matrimonium in fieri.
Marriage happening or taking place, the actual exchange of marital consent.
Matrimonium mixtum.
Mixed marriage, a marriage between a Catholic and a baptized person of another faith.
Maturitas iudicii.
Maturity of judgment, refers to the ability to make a binding commitment to something as serious as the marriage contract, often translated due discretion.
Medicinalis pena.
Medicinal penalty, a censure whose goal is the reform of the delinquent by some kind of privation inflicted in response to an action that was culpable.
Metropolita ecclesiae patriarchalis.
Metropolitan of a patriarchal church, one who presides over a certain province inside the territorial boundaries of the patriarchal church.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 133.
Metropolitanus, metropolita.
Metropolitan, in the Latin Church, an archbishop who, presiding over an ecclesiastical see that has been designated or approved by the Pope as the head of a province, exercises some degree of actual jurisdiction over the suffragan bishops of that province. In the Eastern Churches, there are 4 types.
1.
Independent, equivalent to the Latin metropolitan.
2.
Quasi-independent, not subject directly to the Pope or even to a patriarch but to a major archbishop or some other prelate inferior to a patriarch.
3.
Dependent, having real suffragans but no de facto jurisdiction over them since he and they are both directly subject to a patriarch.
4.
Honorary, presiding over only a fictional province and remaining subject to a prelate inferior to the Pope.
Metus et vis.
Fear and force.
Minor.
Minor, a person, in the canonical sense, who has not completed the 18th year of age.
Minus habens.
Having less.
Missa Latina.
Latin Mass, also known as the Paul VI Mass. In 1963 the Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy of Vatican II permitted the use of vernacular languages for Mass, and in 1970 a new order of the Mass, which included some internal changes, was published in the Roman Missal at the direction of Paul VI. This is the text from which all translations into the vernacular are to be made. This new order of the Mass replaced the Tridentine Mass, and may be celebrated in either Latin or the vernacular.
Missa pro populo.
Mass for the people. The bishop and pastors must offer Mass for the people on all Sundays and holy days.
Missa tridentina.
Tridentine Mass, the order of the Mass, authorized by the Council of Trent in the 16th century, is always celebrated in Latin and follows the pre-Vatican II formula.
Missio.
Mission, the task entrusted to the Church by Jesus to proclaim the gospel to the world and make disciples of all people. The word mission is often used to indicate a parish that has no resident priest but is regularly served by a priest from a neighboring parish. In the plural, the word missions often refers to the activity involved in spreading the faith in foreign or non-Christian areas.
Missus specialis.
Special envoy, someone sent to fulfill a specific mission.
Moderator curiae.
Moderator of the Curia, a priest appointed by the diocesan bishop and whose primary concerns are coordinating administrative matters and the supervision of those working in the Curia.
Monasterium Stauropegiacum.
Stauropegial Monastery, an Eastern Church monastery erected by a patriarch.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 434.
Monophysite.
One nature, an early heresy that held that there is only one nature in Christ and that his humanity was absorbed by his divinity.
Moralis impossibilitas.
Moral impossibility, a legal condition arising when the observance of a law is rendered very difficult by reason of grave fear, serious harm, or extrinsic inconvenience connected with the fulfillment of the law in question.
Motivum.
Motive, in canon law, a cause that is sufficient to request and grant a dispensation.
Motu proprio.
By one's own initiative, a papal decree or legislative document issued by the sovereign pontiff at his own initiative rather than in response to a request.
Miron.
Holy Myron, a mixture of olive oil and other plants and aromatics, blessed only by a bishop, and used in chrismation.
Confirmation.
And in the administration of some of the sacraments in the Eastern Churches.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 693.
Mystici corporis.
Of the Mystical Body, an encyclical of Pius XII on the Mystical Body of Christ, 1943.
NCCB.
National Conference of Catholic Bishops, a permanent ecclesiastical entity, composed of all the Catholic bishops of the United States of America, that deals primarily with matters connected with the internal life of the Church and functions with juridical authority.
Nemo dat quod non habet.
No one gives what he does not have.
Nemo iudex in sua causa.
No one is a judge in his own case.
Nequeant.
Let them not be able.
Nestorianismus.
The 5th century heresy of Nestorius, a bishop of Constantinople, that held that there were two persons in Christ.
Nihil innovetur.
Let nothing new be introduced, let nothing be altered.
Nihil obstat.
Nothing stands in the way, the statement of the censor of books that nothing contrary to faith or morals that might prevent publication is found in the book.
Nomen est omen.
The name is an omen.
Nominatio.
Nomination, the designation of a person made by virtue of some privilege other than the strict right of patronage.
Nomocanon.
Nomocanon, a compendium of civil and ecclesiastical law created before the 6th century by Roman emperors who wished to act as legislator and judge in certain church matters.
Non constat de nullitate.
It does not stand concerning the nullity is not in effect, is not recognized. This is the conclusion of the judge in marriage cases when the doubt has not been proved.
Non sui compos.
Not of sound mind, incompetent, one who is not legally in control of oneself nor responsible for one's actions, and who does not possess the ability or capacity to posit a juridical act.
Norma.
Norm, ordinance, a rule or regulation to be applied in a specific situation, sometimes used as another name for a law.
Nostra aetate.
In our age, a declaration of Vatican II on the relationship of the Church to non-Christian religions, 1965.
Notarius.
Notary, one who works within a diocesan curia to authenticate documents by his or her signature.
Notificatio.
Notification, a clarification of an existing law, similar to a declaration.
Novus ordo seclorum, novus ordo seculorum.
A new order of the ages.
Nunc dimittis.
Now you dismiss, the opening words of the Song of Simeon.
Luke 2, 29-32.
Sung at night prayer in the divine office.
Nuncius apostolicus.
Apostolic nuncio, an ambassador of the Holy See to a foreign power, permanent diplomatic representative of the Pope.
Nunc pro tunc.
Now for then, something done or given now with a future result in view.
Obreptio.
Statement of falsehood, reason for which an administrative act may be declared null and void.
Obrogatio.
Abrogation, the change of an existing law by the creation of a second law that is contradictory to the meaning of the existing law.
Obsequium.
Compliance, ready and respectful allegiance, loyal and obedient assent, submission.
Obsequium religiosum.
Religious submission, the submission due the ordinary teachings of the magisterium of the Church.
Observantia affirmativa.
The repetition of like acts.
Observantia negativa.
The uniform omission of acts.
Ecumenicus.
Ecumenical, the whole or inhabited world. In modern times it refers to the effort to restore unity in the whole of Christianity, sometimes used as a synonym for interdenominational or interreligious.
Ecumenicum concilium.
Ecumenical Council, a meeting of the bishops and major prelates of the whole Church, convoked by the Pope, to treat of matters concerning the universal Church under the presidency of the Pope or his legate.
Officialia responsa.
Official responses, a type of curial pronouncement that consists of answers to questions issued by a particular congregation.
Officialis.
Official, judicial vicar, the head judge of an ecclesiastical tribunal.
Officium ecclesiasticum.
Ecclesiastical office, a function lawfully exercised for a spiritual purpose established either by divine or church law and entailing some participation in the power of orders or of jurisdiction.
Olea sancta.
Holy oils, oils blessed by the bishop on Holy Thursday and used in consecrations and some sacraments.
Omne initium difficile.
Every beginning is difficult.
Omnia parata sunt.
All things are prepared, a possible reason for a dispensation.
Optatam totius.
Desired entirely, The Decree of Vatican II on Priestly Formation, 1965.
Ora et labora.
Pray and work, motto of Saint Benedict.
Oratorium.
Oratory, a place designed, by permission of the ordinary, for divine worship for the benefit of some community or assembly of the faithful who gather there.
Ordinaria jurisdictio.
Ordinary jurisdiction, the power of governance that is connected with some office by the law itself.
Ordinarius.
Ordinary, one who has ordinary jurisdiction. A list includes the Roman pontiff, residential bishops, abbots and prelates nullius, vicars and prefects apostolic, those who temporarily fill the office vacated by one of the above, vicars general, and major superiors in exempt clerical institutes of consecrated life. Local ordinary, technically applies to all of the above except major superiors, but is more often applied to the bishop of a diocese.
Ordinarius castrensis.
Bishop for the military.
Ordines.
Rules of order, the norms or rules of order to be followed in an assembly or gathering of people or celebration.
Ordo.
Rank.
Ordo sancta.
The Holy Order, the sacrament by which priesthood is conferred. This sacrament is often referred to in the plural, holy orders. The word order is also used to refer to some communities of religious men and women.
Ordo.
Directive, a guide for celebrating Mass and the liturgy of the hours for each day of the year.
Orientales ecclesiae.
Eastern churches, some in full communion with the Supreme Pontiff in Rome, and some not, that observe a variety of rites in the liturgical, theological, spiritual, and disciplinary patrimony of the individual churches, and that take their origin from Alexandria, Antioch, Armenia, Chaldea, and Constantinople.
Byzantium.
In the United States the following rites are found: Armenian, Chaldean, Maronite, and Byzantine.
Melkite, Romanian, Ruthenian, and Ukrainian.
Orientalium divinitas.
The dignity of the Eastern
Churches.
An Apostolic Letter of Leo XIII on the Eastern Catholic Churches, 1894.
Orientalium ecclesiarum.
Of the Eastern Rite Churches, a Decree of Vatican II on Eastern Rite Catholic Churches, 1964.
Orthodox churches, Orthodox Christians.
Eastern churches and Christians of any of the various rites who do not recognize the jurisdiction of the Pope in Rome.